Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source for Black news, views, and opinions. Happy Friday. Today is August 19th, and I'm Mimi Brown.
I'm Demi Lobo, and on today's report, it's been nearly 8 months since bomb threats shook HBCUs. Now, school officials are asking for the people responsible to face consequences, asking the FBI to do more. Meanwhile, housing discrimination impacts the lives of Black people more than any other group, pointing to decades of underinvestment. We're going to have that story for you. Then, 2 popular books are pulled from a school's district and classroom in Texas, along with more than 40 other titles. We'll tell you which books are being challenged by parents. Plus, actor Lawrence Robinson is here. He stars in Irv Gotti's hour-long scripted anthology series, Tales. He's going to talk about his upcoming episode. And comedian Ian Edwards is also here to take a look at this week's headlines, but with a side eye. We have all of that and so much more. Soulmates, this is our voice and our truth, so let's talk about it.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. We start today with an update on the HBCU bomb threat that targeted historically Black colleges and universities. It's been nearly 8 months since the rash of bomb threats hit HBCUs around the nation. No one has been arrested or punished. 8 HBCUs received bomb threats on January 4th, each from callers who used racial slurs. On January 31st, at least 7 more schools received similar calls. And on February 1st, the start of Black History Month, 18 schools were called with campus bomb threats, and more threats followed throughout the month. In total, more than a third of HBCUs were targeted this year. Now, the lack of action by the FBI has frustrated some college presidents. They say they are triggered, and it triggered lockdowns, evacuations. It shuttered classrooms and placed a financial burden on their institutions they were not expecting. Now, although there have been calls for months, university officials say they want to see those responsible brought to justice. It's Soulmates. We wanted to bring the story back up because it's left the mainstream media, and it's our job here at Fox Soul's Black Report to make sure that we do a follow-up and to make sure that we're still bringing you the stories that are important to our community. And so one of the things that have presidents of the university so upset is that there have been no arrests, there have been no suspects named, no public statements about what happened, and no conclusive link that says if these instances are linked. And so people are wondering, okay, so is this a one person making these calls? Are these a group of people making these calls? Like, what's going on? And so back in February, the Biden administration, they labeled this a hate crime. They say they have 34 field offices, the FBI field offices working on this, but Demi, nothing has happened yet, and so they're still really trying to figure out what happened. School leaders, they feel like they've been forgotten. I know a lot of students there, it disrupted their peace with school just starting a couple of weeks ago. They don't know if they should be afraid or what's happening or where this case lies. And so I just think it's important that we bring it back up and just try and figure out what's happening here.
Absolutely. And, you went to an HBCU, Mimi, so I'm sure this story hits more home than for you than I know for me. I didn't have the HBCU experience because, when I think of the HBCU experience, I think of a safe haven. I think of when you go to church and being around those like-minded like you. And so to feel as though your safe space was,
compromised.
Exactly. Wonderful words, compromised. Yeah. And then nothing to be done. It almost makes it seem like the government is not taking it serious, and it also leaves the door open for more copycat examples to happen in other HBCUs, and it makes it feel like, hey, you know what, I can just put a bomb threat on an HBCU, and the government is not going to do anything about it. And I think one thing that you said that is very, very important is that the students are feeling very uneasy. And so how do you go to school? How do you feel like I want to study more about Black life when the government is just not even putting any energy into bomb threats that happen not just at my school, at tons and dozens of other HBCUs around the nation?
Yeah, this wasn't something that one person, in my opinion, woke up and did, just because there's so many schools. I think we said about 18 schools were involved in this. The Biden administration, they opened up an application process for schools to get grants and things like that so they can get mental health support. But only one school so far, it's Southern University Law Center in Louisiana, has received the grant. And so not only have there been no arrests made, no suspects named, the money that was supposed to come from this so that people can get that mental health support that they need still hasn't come yet either.
Yes.
So
we need the funds, we also need the resources, and we need the people who are accountable to face consequences. African Americans living in predominantly non-white neighborhoods experienced more crime, drug abuse, worse air quality, and less affordable housing. A new report from National Public Radio, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, and Harvard University said that housing discrimination impacted the lives of black people in multiple ways. In a survey conducted by the report, researchers say that black adults gave lower ratings to the quality of schools as well as policing. The report also says that decades of underinvestment in racially discriminatory government policies contributed to the social ills that affect predominantly non-white areas of the country.
The Department of Justice says Florida Republicans are intentionally targeting African American voters with new voting restrictions. This stems from Florida's SB 90 law, which restricts the availability of absentee ballot drop boxes, third-party voter registration groups, and a ban on providing food and water to people standing in line. The DOJ says Florida lawmakers enacted these restrictions because of the surge in black voter turnout in the 2020 presidential election. While Florida officials claim the law does not discriminate against black people, the DOJ believes it violates Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which prohibits racial discrimination and voting practices.
Planned Parenthood is going to spend a record $50 million on politicians who support abortion rights in the run-up to the midterm elections in November. The move comes 2 months after the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. Now, the abortion rights group says that it will focus its spending on 9 states where a woman's right to choose should be restricted or expanded. The midterms will be the first time abortion opponents, either in the Senate or running for seats, will face voters after the high court's decision.
And George Floyd Square in Minneapolis, it was supposed to be a place where residents could honor the memory of the man killed by police in 2020, but in the last month, it has been the scene of violence. One man died and another was injured in the last week near Floyd's memorial. Police say they found 2 men shot Sunday afternoon near the intersection renamed for Floyd. Now, so far, no arrests have been made. A week before, 29-year-old Muhammad Omar, he died after he was shot in the area. Police department officials say they will increase patrols in the area in an attempt to keep any further violence from happening in the square.
And the woman who was accused of causing a fiery crash in Los Angeles that killed 5 people, including a pregnant woman, had been suffering worsening mental health problems before the crash. That's what LA prosecutors had to say earlier this week during a preliminary hearing. They are trying to deny Nicole Linton's pre-trial release. Prosecutors say Linton has been involuntarily committed for psychiatric treatment in the past, and she was charged last week with 6 counts of murder and 5 counts of vehicular manslaughter for the August 4th crash. Police say she drove through an intersection at 90 miles per hour. One murder charge was filed for the pregnant woman's unborn child. Lawyers for Linton denied the client has had an extensive history of auto accidents, as some news reports have said about her in the past.
And the black owners of a coffee shop in Seattle say they are the victims of racial harassment and vandalism. Black Coffee Northwest has had break-ins, incidents of vandalism, and racist phone calls directed at its employees. The store was opened in 2020 as a place to promote understanding in the community. In addition to selling coffee, the store has a youth leadership development program in the building. And although the attacks are difficult to deal with, the owner says she will keep the doors open.
The day before school began this week in one Texas school district, Toni Morrison's Bluest Eye and the Bible were pulled from school libraries as well as classroom shelves. Officials with the Keller Independent School District say that those were among 41 titles that were challenged by parents. The list also includes books written by gay authors. Last year, a district committee voted to keep the books, but when a new election seated conservative parents, the books were removed. A conservative political action committee called Patriot Mobile mobile action. It raised $500,000 to support candidates across the state that are pushing for the book's bans. I just want to go through just a couple of the books and why they were banned. So Anne Frank's diary was challenged because officials say that it should be viewed in the presence of an adult. So there also was Genderqueer. This was the #1 challenged book in 2021. And so there were also The Bluest Eye, like we said, that was the 8th most challenged book. The Bible, only one person challenged that book. But I was wondering, what did the Bible have to do to anyone? I also feel like everyone has different ways that they praise God and different religions, that the Bible should be able to be there. I don't feel like that is there to diminish or disrespect any other group. But there's just one more here. Out of Darkness was the 4th challenged book according to last year. And of course, I think parents just feel like, hey, I don't want this book to have access for my student to have access to this book in the library. But also, your student doesn't have to go read that book.
Yeah. I mean, when I was growing up, there were age limits on what books you can take in and out of the library. And so that would just seem like the rational thing to do. But clearly, no books are safe if they ban the Bible. I mean, they give you a Bible in jail.
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't understand the point behind banning the Bible. So, you know, I'm pretty sure we haven't heard the end of this. And I know a lot of parents that were challenging the books are also challenging some of these book bans. So, Soulmates will keep you updated on what happens.
And I think, too, when you give people the opportunity, they're going to go through every single one and say, you know what, let's one person challenging the book and it can go really means that the ramifications were so light that you could have one itsy teeny weeny problem with something and then the book would just be gone.
Absolutely. All right, well, Florida's new state attorney is reinstating a policy that disproportionately targets black bike riders. The so-called Biking While Black policy led to an investigation by the U.S. Department of Justice. Florida State Attorney Susan Lopez reinstated the policy that ticketed bike riders who did not follow the rules of the road. The decision came after a study found 70% of the people who received tickets for resisting, without violence happened after a pedestrian or bike stop involved a black person. The previous state attorney, who Governor Ron DeSantis implemented, got fired and got rid of the policy. You know, so this is this problem right here. I didn't understand it. I had to do a deep dive into this because basically what is happening in this part of Florida is that black bike riders are being targeted so much. They're receiving 70% of the tickets for riding their bicycles. For rules that may or may not be lawful, I don't know, but they're receiving more tickets than white people. And what's happening is, so when they go to try and get their driver's license, they cannot get their driver's license. And so the state attorney that was previously in office, he started noticing this and he was like, listen, we're gonna back up off this a little bit, right? And so Governor Ron DeSantis, he fired him. Because of that, he put someone else in place that would continue this practice. It's so bad that the DOJ is involved because clearly they are targeting black bicyclists. So it's Biking While Black. It's a whole thing in this town.
I'm really happy that this town decided to do this because it's a loophole, honestly, because when you're a bike rider and you don't really need to have your driver's license, you probably think, hey, you know, I'm not going to lose my driver's license capabilities being a bike rider, but it's such on their side, not our side, not the Biking While Black, to their end, it's a smart loophole to say, hey, we're going to pull you over, but ultimately this affects your driving capabilities. It's really genius, and I'm really happy that the Biking While Black community came together to fight this because, I mean, hey, we need our driver's license. We need our license to be able, because then you can't drive. If you don't have a driver's license, then you can't drive, and so you can't bike or you can't drive. But I really just want to commend the bike riding community, honestly, around the nation, because bike riding is so dangerous. It is I am terrified about driving in the street. And I feel like I would be one of those people that get a ticket because I want to keep my bike on the sidewalk. I know in Chicago you can't ride your bike on the sidewalk. I would be one of those people that get ticketed.
Yeah, you know, I didn't really understand the bike riding community until Jacory, who's one of our producers. He's an avid bike rider. And just seeing him, watching his Instagram and seeing how this is really a thing and how they were targeting this particular group of people, I understand now. I understand better, and you're right. So, you know, if they can get you on riding your bike, then they can keep you from driving a car. It just becomes a vicious cycle.
Downward spiral, absolutely.